Number 10. Spider-Man's 2021 hoodie suit. Spider-Man's 2021 hoodie costume is definitely an odd one. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this one didn't bother me myself too much. There are parts of it I actually kind of like. I actually really like his shoes, but I do know people who pretty passionately felt that this look is ridiculous. And I'm including it because I value the specific person's opinion who actually even mentioned that to me, and I think they made a fair point for why it was so silly, so I'm going to indulge. The Spider-Man we are talking about here is of course Miles Morales, and the look we're talking about is the one he donned before this current look that he's in right now, which is kind of a return to more of his classic look. I like to call this specific look though his hoodie costume, although to be fair that's a little confusing because he has another hoodie costume, but anyways, Hoodie 2021. It basically looks like he's wearing a hoodie with leggings and of course sweet kicks. Of course I will say this costume looks super comfy, which for me makes more sense than some of the other things that superheroes are known for wearing, but it also greatly deviates from his normally sleek design, which is I think what was missing for most who weren't fans of this look. While it is a bit goofy looking, especially with the leggings, which I gotta say I kind of agree, kinda wish he had looser pants to kind of match his hoodie, this costume was actually made by one of Miles' friends as a replacement, so at least it also had a reason for existing in the story. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us and you love talking about all the dumb, weird costumes by giving this video a thumbs up. I love dumb costumes. Number 9. Wonder Woman's secretary look. Forget the old. The new Wonder Woman is here, and she is depowered and working as a spy and business owner, baby. The kind of Wonder Woman you probably never really asked to see, but the 70s gave it to us anyways. Admittedly, the actual fashion sense of this look is pretty great, I gotta say, so although in some ways this is kinda dumb, I also feel like the actual fashion, amazing. And I mean all around throughout as well. But the fact that it comes with Diana not having her powers anymore is pretty tragic, which is why it's going to make our cut. Even though this was done in an effort to actually promote feminism at the time. The revamp was actually intended by the creative team behind it to encourage other women to strive for independence, and was actually pretty well executed, I gotta say. Even though taking away Diana's powers would in retrospect be seen as a downgrade for the character in regards to her history. Which is why this makes our cut, even though I understand what they were trying to do was not that, but it unfortunately ended up being seen as a setback as opposed to a move forward for the character. Number 8. Martian Manhunter. This was really the only suggestion I got from the comments on our part 2. People were saying that we never talk about male characters in skimpy outfits and how those are dumb, and Martian Manhunter was one of the ones that was suggested. And I do agree that Martian Manhunter does have a weird outfit, but I also didn't know too much about his outfit and what it means, so I decided to look into it. And as I was expecting, while this outfit does look pretty ridiculous with Martian Manhunter's little shorts and his X-straps over his bare chest with his long flowy cape, it turns out there is actually a reason behind it, so it kinda does make sense. Martian Manhunter being a shapeshifter, it's as I expected, and apparently his clothes are actually just him, because he's a shapeshifter. It's just a weird thing to think about. His suit therefore is something he chose to shapeshift into, and it seems to be inspired by the heroes around him. Martian Manhunter in his normal form actually looks more alien even than we know him to look, and is a little bit more spiky. And so his appearance on Earth is actually him trying to stay true to his Martian heritage, while still shifting his appearance somewhat to look more humanoid, so he'll be more accepted, and he makes himself look like he's wearing clothes that he feels makes him look heroic, as that's what he wants to be. He wants to be a hero. So if you think Martian Manhunter dresses weird, it's really kind of a reflection of how Martian Manhunter sees most male superhero costumes and just superhero costumes in general, and maybe the way that we see them. In fact, I definitely see inspiration in his look from another alien superhero, Superman. You know, with his green skin and his little booty shorts, which sometimes are like little briefs. It's kind of got a Superman vibe to it a little bit. Number 7. Susan Storm's cutout suit. Oh boy. This is a 90s classic in some of the worst ways, I think I can safely say. Now, I love a woman in a sexy costume, but this one is a lot, even for me. And what's worse, they made it narratively so that Sue designed this one herself, which feels not right for the character, but hey. If that feels pretty out of character for Sue, who refers to feeling like an old frump jump in her previous suit. You're not alone in thinking that, by the way. Many people like to defend this costume by actually saying that narratively its creation makes sense because it came from her evil persona Malice, actually, who was still possessing and influencing Sue at the time, and that this is actually an indicator of that. While this might be true, I'm still skeptical as to this being the real reason outside of the canon for this redesign. And even if that is the only reason she had this suit, I still don't really like it, because as a Sue Storm fan, it doesn't actually come from Sue herself, but from Malice, who was controlling her at the time. Which I know Malice is kind of like a part of her, but it's like the evil part of her, so there's really not as much agency here for Sue. Number 6. Vision. Marvel Comics initially had a completely different character who was known as the hero Vision. This was actually back, I believe, when they were Timely, before they were known as Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics would ultimately, of course, ditch their original version of the character and later get a completely new version, an android instead of an alien, who would end up as the Vision we know and love today. Not only is this original Vision's costume a product of the times, that insanely thick gold belt that he's wearing, but if you consider Martian Manhunter's costume to be ridiculous, Vision likely inspired that look, having a similar origin and a similar appearance initially, and appearing 15 years earlier in the comics in 1940, whereas Martian Manhunter, I believe, first appeared in 1955, so yeah.
Number 5. Batman and Robin. Another late Schumacher film. Okay, another suit to talk about. It's kind of hard not to talk about the costume details when it shows all the details very close up. I mean, some of the shots we get here, I swear I can smell the fabric. Like, imagine if 3D was this advanced back then. Oh my god. You'd look in your popcorn and find Robin's ass. You're like, how did this get here? The suits changed from Michael Keaton's version, yet somehow they got worse? It got worse. So now George Clooney was rocking this hard plastic nipply looking suit, and even better, Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl and Chris O'Donnell as Robin sported the same design near the end of the film. Just in case, you know, one new suit wasn't enough. I get it, I mean the new suits are supposed to prevent against frost damage, all that jazz, but how much damage protection do we need down there, guys? I mean, I know you're George Clooney and all, but like, that's a lot of armor for, you know. Number 4. Jim Gordon. So after the events of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Endgame storyline, we found a new home for the Batman cowl. This time around, it belongs to former police commissioner Jim Gordon. See, his initial bat suit is actually pretty neat. It complements his lanky body, the all black look with the dark yellow outlines, and no cape. Thank God. I'd rather have Batman with no cape than a cape that looks like it got shredded by a velociraptor. Any day. I'm a fan of his entire look here, okay? Now, if we did a list of the best Batman suits, I would for sure throw this one on there. Now, unfortunately, he also has this military suit that he uses over top of that already existing cool one. They purposely designed it so it wouldn't look like Iron Man, and that worked. I mean, mostly. So the powerful armor got the job done, but it looked clunky. It didn't look nice. Fans didn't like the giant bunny ears, and they could for sure go without the War Machine type missile shoulder pads. Great storyline again, but seeing him disappear into that armor brought a frown to my face every time I turned the page. Number 3. All of the colors. So in 1937 issue 241 of Detective Comics, we find Batman on the cover with quite the dilemma. It's a dilemma we're all probably used to by now. He changes up the colors of his costume quite a few times in here, but why? Maybe he wore a similar color the day before, or hey, maybe on Wednesdays he wears pink. You never know. Or maybe this has something to do with the Comics Code Authority. See, in order to appeal to the public eye that comics weren't just this dark and gritty thing, they tried to change up his outfit a few times to keep it fun. Hey, it's pink now, look, we're having fun. So in this issue, we have Robin hurting his arm, but we also have Batman sporting some fun new colorful suits. Eventually, just putting all the colors together and rocking the infamous rainbow suit, which I'm a fan of. You know, if you can't pick one color, pick them all. Let's go. The only reason I have to include the rainbow suit on a list about the worst Batman suits is because it hurts your eyes to look at no matter what page it's on. See, some sequences show Batman punching a criminal and the yellow background blends in with the yellow part of his costume. Same goes for any background color really. Like, if I was standing here in front of a green screen with all the colors on, green would just be really hard to focus on. It would blend in with the background. It's why we don't wear green in any videos, because it looks like that in the background. So the rainbow outfit was thought to be left in the late 50s, but it made a fashionable return in Francis Manapul's Trinity issue 1. Number 2, Stan Lee's Batman. The late Stan Lee had his take on the Caped Crusader back in 2001, and DC Comics asked him to reimagine all their famous heroes as if he had done it himself, which sounds like a pretty exciting event. So he came up with Wayne Williams, a cross between Luke Cage and, of course, Bruce Wayne. And we see these in action in Just Imagine Volume 1. So he was convicted of a crime he didn't do, and then learned a few skills in the slammer while he was serving. And then when he was released, he first made a costume and tried to make some money wrestling. Okay, sounds familiar. Homemade costume, some wrestling. If you're into a Batman that looks more like an actual bat, this is a great place to go. And finally, number 1, Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman, right on the cover, we see regular size Robin rocking a regular size Robin outfit, and then we see a Bat Baby with a Bat Baby suit to complete the picture. Look out, it's Bat Baby and Robin? Question mark? That's what a bystander is shouting right on the front cover and all. So what's going on here? Why is Batman wearing jean short overalls? Why is he a baby? Also, why is he a child? Turns out Nails Finney brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a small child. Little baby. What's even better about this whole ordeal is that he still has the strength of a full-grown Batman. So he can kick your ass. He's just tiny. And the headlines were amazing in the news that week. Even in the comic, it says, Gangland turns Batman into baby. And then the photo is just Batman all moody standing there like, I don't know why he's moody, like he's still the same Batman, he's just small. Actually, you know what? I do know why he's moody. He's an infant. So Robin at one point even has to carry Batman to the Batmobiles, like carry him, because his little fat baby legs can't get him around so fast. So what does Batman do? He embraces it. He's like, fine, I'll dress like a baby. That's what you want, that's what you get. And he does well, or he does okay, rather. Yeah, one of the headlines that you see next reads, Bat Baby does okay for a kid. I mean, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up into the air and then took out 3 criminals as a baby, but definitely just okay, A-okay. The only soft spot on this Batman is the one on the top of his head.
At number 10, we have the Rainbow Batman suit from Detective Comics number 241. This is the suit where we get to see Bruce Wayne's fashionista persona as he gets to fight crime in all sorts of different colored suits, from green to purple to yellow to white to red, which on the cover looks more like a neon pink to me. And of course, rainbow. Now, you might wonder why the Dark Knight would want to wear all these costumes, but as always, when it comes to Batman, the explanation is purely logical and slightly convoluted. See, the Bat Diva did this in order to draw attention towards himself and away from Robin, who earlier had performed a heroic act as Dick Grayson, pushing a girl out of the way of a speeding car and injuring his arm in the process. And since Batman don't believe in work from home culture, and to his credit it is the 50s, he takes the money he would have spent on Robin's paid leave and cops himself some new fancy outfits so that no one would pay attention to Robin's arm and realize his secret identity. If you're enjoying the video so far, do me a quick solid and support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Goes a long way. Thanks guys. At number 9, we have Raven's New 52 redesign from Teen Titans number 17. Raven's original cloak is simple, elegant, and iconic, and so to recapitulate that essence for the New 52, they took all that and put it in the garbage and just went, Raven? Needs feathers. Listen, I know she's supposed to be gloomy and mysterious and whatnot, but covering her face completely is stupid, and what they covered it with looks ridiculous. Not to mention the whole bird theme as a whole is severely uninspired. And also the knee pads. Why does she need freaking knee pads? Heck, if you're gonna take it that far, you might as well throw in some elbow pads, shin guards, and a jock strap for good measure. Morons. At number 8, we have Cyborg Spiderman from Spider-Man number 21. This is probably the most 90s Spider-Man costume out there, though I wouldn't be surprised if one of you guys in the comments proved me wrong. Solo nearly ended Spider-Man, believing him to be Doc Ock thanks to an illusion cast onto him by Mysterio. But Peter was rescued in the nick of time by Cyborg X, who took him to Care Labs to get fixed up, where he would awake with a new metal cast, an eyepiece, and some stitches. He was even gifted a utility belt, though Spidey never puts this one to use. And while the original version of the Cyborg suit is disbanded fairly fairly quickly, probably on account of it being so hard to look at. It's worth mentioning that a Pete from a different timeline decided to go all in with the cybernetic enhancements, leading to a truly cyborg Spider-Man whose costume is seriously done right. We're even gonna get a fresh take of the character on screen in the next Spider-Verse movie with Cyborg Spider-Woman, and I'm all about it. Well, save for the spiky shoulder guard. Personally, I feel it's a little bit out of place, but maybe we'll get a good enough explanation for it in the movie, but probably not. At number 7, we have the Superman Unchained armor from Superman Unchained number 7. Okay, look, we can all agree that the Unchained armor is undoubtedly badass looking. That's not my point here. My gripe is the fact that Superman's wearing it. You see, Kal dons the armor when he realizes that he's vulnerable to attack from the weapons wielded by General Lane's army. And the suit, which comes with a hammer and shield, is able to withstand a few blows that supposedly would have one-shot the Man of Steel. Okay then, so why does he need a shield? He is Superman after all, it's not like he needs anything other than his fists for combat. Or better yet, why doesn't he just ditch the suit altogether and just keep the shield, as it proves to be far more effective at sponging blows from Lane's weapons than the armor is. And don't even get me started on the hammer, which is literally only there to rip off Mjolnir. Not to mention how uncharacteristic and lazy it is of Superman just to put on thicker armor when a greater threat presents itself. Because it would have been much more satisfying to see Superman outwit his opponent instead of just out-tanking him. Like, okay, DC, listen up. Maybe you can use this design for some sort of Thor, Darth Maul, Megazord hybrid character, but Superman, guy doesn't need it. Give it to someone else. At number 6, we have Iron Man's nose from Iron Man number 68. There's change in the air. I can smell it. One of the most iconic examples of a redesign gone wrong, we have that period of time where Tony Stark thought it would be a good idea to include a nose in his mask to make him look more expressive and help strike fear into the heart of his enemies. Buddy, the only thing you're striking me with is an intense desire to laugh in your face, because let's face it, the addition of a big metal nose ain't exactly intimidating. Now you might be wondering why Marvel would even give him a nose in the first place. Well, the story goes that one day Stan Lee was complaining about one of the studio's new artists. See, Stan thought that Tony's eyes were too close to the surface of the helmet for there to be any room for a nose underneath the mask, and so Stan asked, where's his nose? The editors took this to mean that Iron Man should have a nose, and so they gave him one. That is, until Stan caught wind of the change a few issues later and demanded that the editors change it back.
Number 5, 1602 armor. I think that everyone can see what Neil Gaiman and Adam Kubert were going for with the Iron Man design from the 1602 miniseries. It is a steampunk-esque design from the Middle Ages, and that sounds like a great idea on paper, but in execution it's actually very over-designed and somehow more complex than the Mark I armor. In the world of 1602, Anthony Stark is Lord Iron, a man who was taken captive during the Anglo-Spanish War and forced to make weapons, after being subjected to torture by this universe's version of Bruce Banner named David Banner. Later on, after Banner becomes the Hulk, Stark is summoned by the King of England to track Banner down. Needing some sort of protection in order to survive, Stark dons his iron armor that is powered by lightning bottles that provides him with super strength and near invulnerability alongside a couple other fun electricity powered gadgets. Stark eventually found the Hulk, and despite his pleas for forgiveness, Stark continued to attack him until a much bigger threat forced the two of them to team up. With a busy paint scheme and design, the 1602 armor ends up making Iron Man look a bit like a Doctor Who villain, which probably wasn't the intention, and that is why it's on this list today. Check it out in 2005's Marvel 1602 New World number 2. Number 4, Mark 6 Hydro armor. So usually whenever Tony has to go underwater, he just dives right in and the armor protects him. However, in a few cases, Tony has had to dive pretty deep into the ocean, and obviously the pressure could crush even a regular armored suit with ease. So Tony wound up creating a special armor built to withstand those pressures, which became the Mark 6 Hydro armor. The Hydro armor has all the standard features of the regular Iron Man suits, but reconfigured to be more effective underwater. That means there's carefully adapted repulsor beams, more life support, grapples, a feature that fires an underwater electric shock, and the ability to release an inky chemical like an octopus. The armor is treated with lights and a bioluminescence to allow Tony to see in the pitch darkness of the oceans. It's also maneuverable enough for Tony to handle fighting whales, sharks, or the Submariner himself. He doesn't use it as often as other armors, but this suit proves Tony can handle pretty much any environment pretty well. Now, why is this armor dumb, you ask? Well, like I said, he doesn't use it too often, but also because he's wearing armor just inside another armor. You can imagine how uncomfortable that would be, and honestly, you'd think with those seemingly endless resources, he would just make one that just did everything. Check out the first Hydra armor in 1987's Iron Man number 218. Number 3, Mark 19 Skin armor. Now it seems to me that Tony Stark is really into that whole metal but make it weird concept when it comes to his armors, and that is definitely seen in one of his earliest experiments with that concept, the skin armor. This suit was made of an adaptive liquid alloy that could simultaneously become as hard as adamantium and yet stay flexible enough to bounce and bend comfortably. It's a super cool concept and made for a pretty badass suit since it featured some upgraded versions of Stark's existing tech and was able to be controlled remotely. However, the way this suit formed is actually what makes it a rather dumb design. Basically, the flexible alloy only formed the gold sections of his armor and would only harden or form around the red parts on command, meaning that Tony would be running around like looking half dressed most of the time, which is pretty ridiculous. Check it out for yourself in 2001's Iron Man Volume 3 number 42 and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 2. Iron Lantern. Hailing from Marvel and DC's Amalgam Universe comes Harold Stark, a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark, who acts as a hero under the name of Iron Lantern. In this reality, Stark was injured after an alien ship crashed into Earth, and in an attempt to stay alive, he made an armor out of the wreckage of the ship, using the Lantern power battery he found as the power source. This suit not only allowed him to survive, it also granted him all of the powers of the Green Lantern. Using these newfound powers, Stark was operating as the Iron Lantern and took down many powerful enemies such as Madame Sapphire, Great White, and of course his arch nemesis, Mandarin Estro. Now I want to get it out of the way that I love the Amalgam Universe. I've talked about it in so many other videos, but honestly this hero just isn't doing it for me. Iron Man's calling card is that he's just a man, but with that ring, the iron seems pretty redundant and kind of eliminates the humanity imbued into Tony Stark. Check it out for yourself in 1997's Iron Lantern, number 1. And number 1, the Sniff Buster. Now you're probably sitting there like, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist. And I mean, technically you're right since I completely made up the name, but it'll all make sense once I explain the suit a little bit more. For a period of time, Iron Man's armor had a big old nose on the front of it. The true story is that Stan Lee, upon seeing an Iron Man cover, made an offhand comment asking, hey, where's the nose? Meaning that he thought the helmet just looked a little bit too snug to Tony's face for a nose to fit. However, this comment was misinterpreted terribly by others as meaning that Stan wanted a nose on the armor, so it ended up being added. They forced an in-story explanation for the iron nose, with Tony stating that he redesigned the mask to allow for a bit more expression, which would thus increase the fearsome aspects of his character. To no surprise, no one in the Marvel Universe bought it, and many characters remarked how ridiculous Iron Man's nose hole made him look. Luckily, the nasal armor was relatively short-lived and has not re-emerged since. Go take a look at it for yourself in 1974's The Invincible Iron Man number 68.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Bullseye. Daredevil. Wow, he's the coolest guy I've ever seen at a bar, hands down. So Bullseye was introduced to readers back in Daredevil 131. Now, I know he doesn't look the coolest here either, but that's who the character is, okay? Make your movie universe work for that character or just don't use the character yet. That's it. Like, you can't have Daredevil looking like this, and then when it comes to Bullseye, you have him looking like this. You can't have cool guy Colin Farrell and also leather Daredevil. It's just like, pick a lane. It looks like he's the villain of a 90s TV show, honestly. He doesn't look like the iconic evil assassin at all in this entire movie. Plus, Colin Farrell's performance is just... Now, the Batman universe did Ben Affleck a little bit better, and now we can also look forward to Colin Farrell being in the Penguin in the new Batman, so it's good. It's like you start with Marvel, move to DC, or you start to DC, and then you move to Marvel. Proper transitions. And before we head over to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it really means a lot for us at the channel, and it also helps us out as well too. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for supporting. Now back to this list. Number 9, Silver Samurai, the Wolverine. Alrighty, we got a cinematic masterpiece coming from Fox, because they just pump out the best superhero movies ever. The Silver Samurai in this movie has no mutant abilities. It's rather just an advanced tech suit. It was made up of adamantium from the orders of Ikiro Yoshida, and it was meant to prolong his life until he got Logan's healing factor. And it also looks like a Decepticon. Although it's based off of the original armor of the Silver Samurai, it just didn't work out. It was too much CGI, took you out of the movie, felt like you were watching Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. It was just a mess. But while this Wolverine movie may be at the bottom of the list for many, I don't feel too bad for adding it in here because eventually we got around to James Mangold's Logan, which was a perfect send-off for the character. So far, there's only a couple of Fox characters that have been redeemed. Wolverine and some other mutant that I'm going to mention definitely later on in this list. Number 8, Vision. Avengers Age of Ultron. So with WandaVision episodes dropping weekly, we're getting to see Marvel have another crack at suiting up their power couple. We've seen a sneak peek now for their original comic book look that's going to come up in a future episode. Okay, cool, that's going to be amazing. So now it's only fair to revisit Marvel's first attempt at Vision. Age of Ultron was released in 2015 and comic book fans were delighted to see the creation of Vision in this movie. But unfortunately, it looked like another CGI android and not anything close to what made him pop and unique in the comics. So while some characters like Hawkeye have to look more military based because that's part of this arc for this universe that they're building all these stories in, he's more of a military character. It would make sense that he doesn't jump right into the purple onesie off the bat. But Vision could have looked anyway. He didn't have to be as grounded and realistic as Hawkeye did in the story. They could have had way more fun with him, which is something WandaVision is finally doing now. And even the solo Hawkeye show that's coming to Disney Plus is kind of leaning into more fun costume-wise. So we can look forward to seeing that in the future. See, things get better for Marvel. They start off a little bit choppy and then they're like, oh, let's throw in some purple. Let's throw in some green. Number 7, the Rhino. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Okay, the Spider-Man almost trilogy with Andrew Garfield. Here we go. So we got to see the introduction to Rhino, played by Paul Giamatti, which is a wild sentence to say aloud. So the popular villain made his debut in Amazing Spider-Man issue 41 back in 1966. And fans were pumped to see this movie possibly lead us to a Sinister Six movie. And it was coming. So this strange gentleman throughout the movie who is assembling this sinister crew asked Alexei to pilot this exosuit. Now at the beginning of this movie, we had seen him trying to hijack an Oscorp van containing vials of plutonium. Now of course this was Spidey's cool first fight scene of the movie, so he took him down with ease, throwing in left hooks and quips, eventually leaving him literally standing there with his pants down. And then at the end of this film, because you know he's only in the opening scene and the ending scene forever, that's all the Rhino we have now until they redo him again, but they're not going to bring him back for sure. This is a hard character to do, and it didn't really work out in this movie in any way. Yeah, like imagine if you joined Jamie Foxx's Electro coming into the MCU in the next Spider-Man movie. Like if he appeared there, he'd get his ass kicked. Like Mark 1 could take this guy. Now I understand you need to make it again more realistic for a live action movie, but this just wasn't it. Number 6, Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse. He made his first full comic book appearance in X-Factor issue 5. He's the big, brooding villain of the Marvel Universe, or one of them at least. And after the success of X-Men Days of Future Past, this movie was hyped up. The first mutant, near omnipotent superpowers, this guy is the big bad we've been waiting for in the X-Men universe. And the results were boring dialogue. The costume ended up looking like the sticky dude from Power Rangers movie. Ivan Ooze. Yeah, Ivan Ooze was the villain. Hi, can I get 4 tickets to X-Men Ivan Ooze? Thanks, debit. To be honest, I'd rather just watch Oscar Isaac act as a person, because it's usually pretty good. Ex Machina was an amazing performance. This movie just felt like a superhero movie with a budget every time I looked at him. And also, the guy's barely in the movie. Like, for the main villain, for Apocalypse in a live-action X-Men film, we got to see him for less than 20 minutes in total.
Number 5, Smallville's Aquaman. Whether we're talking sleeves or no sleeves, second generation or first generation, the Aquaman look for Smallville was pretty ridiculous and honestly kinda dumb in a bad way. While I typically try to approach dumb lists with less of that kind of outlook because, you know, dumb doesn't always have to mean bad, and it definitely doesn't usually mean bad for me, this costume, in my opinion, is actually pretty atrocious. I honestly, I don't really like this one. Honestly, I think I'd rather have the Golden Age look with the weird fins on his arms and his legs over this one. It just looks like a weird jogging outfit to me, and I know it's probably supposed to be like a wetsuit, but no, just let's pretend it didn't happen. Except we can't because it's on this list, so now we all have to remember it. Number 4, the Crossing Thor. I mean, everyone in The Crossing looked pretty wild, but Thor is definitely up there for me personally. The Crossing is the event where we learned that this whole time Iron Man had been basically a sleeper agent for Immortus, aka an alternate timeline version of Kang the Conqueror. The whole time! Dun dun dun! In honor of this very important and historical time, Thor and many of the other Avengers ended up with kind of new looks. Now, Thor's costume was definitely the most 90s look I think I've ever seen. The only thing it's missing really for me is pouches, honestly. What it lacks in pouches though, it makes up for with everything else in abundance. Tons of chains and elaborate excessive harnesses, and one of those weird like face masks that covers part of your face, like the sides and the top, but leaves a hole on the top of it for your hair to come out. And of course, I believe this was actually supposed to be what future Thor was meant to look like in this comic, in like another timeline, despite this look truly screaming 90s. In the story, this appeared to be a vision that we got of what a future Thor would look like. Now, thank goodness that hasn't ended up happening in this current timeline, at least not yet anyways. I don't know, that might still be somewhere lurking. Number 3. Star Sapphire. When it comes to Star Sapphire, Carol Ferris, she isn't always a hero and she isn't always a villain either. She's kind of done both of those things. She served both roles, but either way, she usually does so pretty ridiculously dressed, I gotta be honest. I mean, not always. She's had some reasonable costume designs and some that I've liked, but for this point, I'm focusing on her one-piece bathing suit-like costume with the middle of it cut out to the point that it becomes theoretically, structurally unsound, I'd say. For the record, I don't mind a woman who shows off her body. In fact, you know, I too enjoy that, both as a woman and both as someone looking at women, especially when it comes from a place of empowerment. I don't really mind anyone showing off their body as long as they're the ones making that choice for themselves, and it makes sense. Truly, doing so can not only be a good showcase of confidence, but also of self-love and self-celebration, and that's hot to me. But this costume is just objectively ridiculous, because how does it stay on? I mean, I know that it's, you know, probably like a construct, likely created by Carol, so we can explain it away with what is basically like kind of cosmic magic. But imagine cosplaying this look. Imagine it. Just imagine you wearing this costume, and how does that work? Without added invisible straps or literal glue or tape, it becomes impossible. And for that reason, I have to call it dumb, because logically, in our world at least, where sadly there are no green or violet lanterns, it simply doesn't work as it appears. Also, I have only ever seen people successfully cosplay this look with invisible straps. Glue would likely damage your outfit, and honestly, it's really hard on your skin, I know, because I've worn it under costumes before, and tape would probably sweat off unless it was really cold out. And I know because I'm not a super sweaty person, and I've also worn tape before and experienced that, which you know, if you have to wear it in the cold too, you'd be really cold in this look. So really the only option is invisible straps, which clearly Carol doesn't need somehow in the comics, as she's never drawn with them. Unless maybe she is, but they're invisible so we don't see them. Even invisible straps, you usually see them, so just makes no sense. Number 2. The Crossing Wasp. I don't just want to talk about the crossing here, folks, but as ridiculous as Thor's look is, Wasp is possibly even more wild. Now, she kinda had two looks as well. The one she wore at the beginning, which is kind of like a metallic bodysuit that somehow like fits her like spandex, and possibly even has a metal pocket on the legs. I'm not sure. I saw that in one of the panels I was looking at, and I was like, wait a minute. Does she have like metal cargo pants that are skin tight? It looks like a pocket to me. The second is after she is resurrected in Avengers issue 394 and comes back literally looking like a pink bug woman with bright pink hair and bright pink wings. Number 1. Original Peacemaker. I have to say, I really love how dumb this look is, and I love that we managed to somehow keep it in the DCU, almost one for one. The reason why I went with the original version of Peacemaker's costume from his days at Charlton Comics isn't just because of the white pants, which to me are an absurd fashion choice to make when you know you're headed into a fray. Wearing white pants in general for me is like a huge thing. I'm a messy person in my day-to-day, so I can't imagine getting into a fight with white pants on. But the other thing that I really think is strange about this that really gets me is the weird giant helmet. It looks like there's like a thick doorway sitting on top of Peacemaker's head.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the zebra print suit. So ever since those party rock guys started shuffling around town, we've seen a lot of teens rocking the zebra print look. And while it might be a nice way to draw attention to your legs and maybe your fresh new clean white Vans, it's not the best look for, say, I don't know, a bat suit. So yeah, back in 1960, we got the pleasure of meeting Zebra Man, who's a villain that uses magnetic lines of force after he created a device that granted him these magnetic powers. So Batman and Robin both got a close-up look at this machine, and maybe Batman got a little bit too close because his suit and skin turned into the same zebra stripes that we saw. So now we have Zebra Batman. The only difference was he didn't have the belt that Zebra Man used, so he wasn't able to control said new powers. And it just looked, well, you know how it looks. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and smash that like button right down below, because it helps us out quite a lot here in the studio. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being fans. Now let's get back to some Batman suits. Number 9, 1940s serial batsuit. So the first ever live action Batman was played by an actor named Lewis Wilson back in 1943. And he was part of this 15-chapter serial from Columbia Pictures and included Douglas Croft as Robin as well. and I'll get into the suit design in just a sec, but let's just talk about the storyline first. I mean, we have the Batman during World War II, and he's trying to take down Agent Dr. Daka and put an end to his plans. See, this was right after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and Dr. Daka was operating a sabotage ring in Gotham City. So naturally, it's time to suit up. Now fans look back at the costume design and cringe. I mean, nowadays everything is so sleek and military, so when you see this, it comes off as a little silly. I mean, the arms and legs are baggy. It looks like a bat suit your uncle pulls out every Halloween. You know, the same one he's had for like 50 years. And the belt too? Dude, how the hell are you sneaking up on some crooks when you're literally wearing a disco ball for a belt? You'll blind them before anything. They won't even see you coming. They won't have eyes left. What does it for me personally is the uneven bat ears. It looks like a Great Dane when its ears are taped up when it's young. Number 8, Sir William. This one comes straight from Earth 9, and DC says that this universe still exists, which is pretty neat. So basically the idea was in 1997, DC Comics launched Tangent Comics, which was a new take on our heroes' origins. We all love those. So as you guessed from the name Sir William, this Batman was fresh out of the Arthurian times. Sir William was a knight of King Arthur's Round Table who had to pay for some previous faults. See, Morgan Le Fay seduced him and convinced him to fight King Arthur using her magic. So, not a nice guy. He's actually probably great, I don't know. So he was confined to his own castle, which as far as groundings go, not that bad. I mean, I never got to hang out in Castle Bat when I got grounded growing up, so what the hell is this? Sir William discovered that he had the ability to project his spirit into his armor and have it walk free. Kind of like the pair of pants from Disney's Onward, you know, the pants that just walk around? It's kind of like that, except less sad. And as far as Batsuit designs go, this one is just messy. I mean, the spikes on the shoulders are just covering your blind spots, not to mention the added weight, the Mohawk helmet as well. I mean, I think it's gonna be a no from me in terms of design. But he's mastered sword fighting, okay? I'll give him that. He can sword fight, that's pretty cool. We all love swords. Number 7, Azrael. Better known as Jean-Paul Valley, he is a vigilante who resided in Gotham City. See, after Bane broke Batman's back, he took on the mantle in the Nightfall story arc. See, Jean-Paul was able to defeat Bane when he stepped up to the bat, pun intended, and he replaced the Caped Crusader. But in doing so, he made more than a few changes to the suit. Technical changes, but also, of course, design. So the final product had him looking like a cross between Batman and like an Autobot. He has the blue and yellow metallic armor, which looks like a hot mess already. And on top of it, he even added other gadgets in, like he added claws, dual mag weapons, and of course, a cape that definitely does not work in terms of, you know, aviation. That's not gonna fly. That's literally not gonna fly. Sure, he made the Nightfall story arc interesting, but if we're looking at just suits here, this takes the cake easily on this list. Number 6, oh yeah. Number 6, Batman Forever. Of course, on a list about Batsuits, we must bring up the suit that changed our childhoods forever. The one with the bat nipples. Sounds like a Friends episode that didn't make it. The late Joel Schumacher did Batman Forever in 1995, and Val Kilmer was a pretty fun Batman. Jim Carrey was a pretty fun Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones was... It was the 90s, okay? It was weird. The weirdest detail of this version of Batman's suit has to be this. I mean, we don't need nipples on the suit. We just don't need them. We don't at all. Even if they did somehow help with chafing, they would have to be perfectly lined up all day. I would be fixing that every 15 seconds. He said he sent costume maker Jose Fernandez photos of Greek statues and opted for more of an anatomical look, hence the, you know, shredded abs. And then when he saw the nipples on the suit, he thought, that's cool. Those right there, those some cool nipples. And he's still glad that he did it to this day. Well, so are we, because now we can talk about it some more in this lovely list.
Number 5, War Machine. We are staying put in the Crossing event for this one as well. If you are unfamiliar with this event in Marvel history, it involved a storyline where our superheroes went up against Iron Man. For a hero who is so celebrated, Tony Stark certainly does get battled by his fellow heroes more than you'd think. In this story, Tony is revealed to have been working for Kang for years, which results in the heroes having to team up to stop him. The end result is an older Tony Stark being converted back to good and sacrificing himself so that younger Tony from his past, who is also fighting him, can take over as the Tony of the present. Yeah, it's a confusing one. Anyways, as a result of Tony being evil, Rhodey looks to distance himself from Iron Man, which means him getting a new suit, which looks a bit like a group of, like space bubbles. Also, what is wrong with his helmet? Why is it so round and small? Like, what happened to the shape of James's head? Number 4. Stay gold, Iron Man. Before we had the amazing suits that belong to Tony Stark today, I mean, we could make a few lists based on the best of Iron Man suits if we haven't already. We had the original Avengers version of Iron Man. You may remember this suit from the Iron Man origin story in the MCU, but it looked even less cool and a lot more Tin Man in the Avenger Volume 1 series. So much so that when Iron Man went to save people with it, they didn't even like the look of it. But Tony Stark had a plan to fix this. Update the suit, build a new one, get some cooler gadgets? Nope, nope, and nope. His plan was to paint it gold. And the weird thing is that it worked. Granted, this costume only lasted for a short time in the comics before Tony did end up creating a new suit, but still, it is astonishing that this gold version of his Mark I eyesore somehow made it exponentially better to anyone who saw it painted gold. What? Number 3. Thor. And back to the crossing we go. Sorry friends, I obviously need to make a top 10 worst superhero costumes from the crossing list. If you want me to delve more into this comic book event for awful looks, let me know in the comments. Or if you want to just delve more into massive events like the crossing in terms of comic lore. During this event, everyone looked awful, but I am not sure if there was anyone worse than Thor. If you thought the flowing locks we see in the MCU on Thor were a bit much, you're gonna love this. His hair was drawn long enough to look like it could just reach past his butt. He is covered in random leather straps, they don't seem to be useful for anything. He's also covered in metal spikes, and Mjolnir for some reason has a chain hanging from it. He is also basically wearing a green crop top. Yep. Number 2. Star Sapphire. A lot of Star Sapphire's outfits have been known for their revealing nature. The sometimes villain, sometimes hero is one of Hal's exes and comes to us from the Pink Lanterns, who stand for love. So it kinda makes sense that they would often prefer to, show off some skin. But there is showing off some skin, and then there is showing off some skin and, breaking the laws of physics. The outfit I'm referring to is one that is a mystery when it comes to how it stayed on. This outfit involves full arm coverage and a very large collar, but about nothing else. Her abdomen is exposed, and who knows how that costume manages to give her enough support in the chest area. It certainly is a strange leotard, which also comes with a headdress that wraps onto her cheeks for that extra coverage. You know how it is. Sins of Star Sapphire? Oh, that costume was a sin. Number 1. Wonder Man. Which costume does one even pick for Wonder Man? They are all terrible. The one of the worst in my mind is when he simply wore a red blazer and sunglasses as a costume, like over a black t-shirt and jeans. Oh, and don't forget that gold chain. Wow. This look comes to us from the Mighty Avengers series, but there have been countless other gaudy appearances from Wonder Man, including his West Coast Avengers look, and let's not forget all the pouches he was given during the 90s in his self-titled series. What is it with pouches? Like, you're a superhero fighting crime, like what do you need to keep in there? Your keys? Some band-aids? Chapstick? Why do people have so many pouches in the 90s?
Number 10. Mark I Model 3. Okay, I want to get it out of the way right now that I am in no way talking smack about the design of the original Iron Man suit. I mean, although it was bulky and cumbersome, it's absolutely an iconic design, and more importantly, it was built with a purpose. Tony found himself in a bad situation and needed to escape, so he built an armor out of any materials available to him. Makes absolute sense. The quote-unquote upgraded gold version of this suit, however, not so much. Tony decided that the gray color of his armor was far too scary, or I guess he was kind of told that because the biggest inspiration for this redesign came from a date with Marion Rogers, who told Tony that Iron Man could really use a nice paint job, so that he'd better resemble a knight in shining armor. Tony obviously took this to heart, and the gold armor was born because he thought it would make him a more approachable hero. This design obviously didn't stick around for too long, as not long after he adopted the first iteration of the classic red and gold color scheme that the world now knows so well and loves. Fun fact though, the gold-plated armor is actually the reason Iron Man has the nickname the Golden Avenger. Check out the Mark I in its first appearance in 1963's Tales of Suspense number 39. Number 9. Mark 33 Submarine Argonaut. The Mark 33 armor isn't the first deep sea variant of the Iron Man armor, but it is pretty bad if I do say so myself. It is one of the 5 different Iron Man armors that Tony created from the Argonaut series, developed to augment his extremist-based armor technology. The submarine Argonaut was a yellow armor that had clawed hands and feet, was capable of a little bit of camouflage, and had a deep sea range of about 2,563 meters. Basically, it was a pressurized suit that allowed Tony to operate in the deepest depths of the ocean. Now, why is this a dumb armor, you ask? Well, mostly because Tony never actually got around to using it, or any of the 5 Argonaut suits for that matter. The armors were instead triggered via remote when the son of Ho Yinsen was shot and killed by SHIELD forces. This armor then attacked Namor and was later destroyed by Iron Man himself and left to sink to the bottom of the ocean, and has not been seen since. It was just kinda left there. Check out this sad underwater armor for yourself in its first appearance in 2006's Iron Man Volume 4, number 7. Number 8. Heroes Reborn. In 1996, Marvel created the controversial Heroes Reborn event/storyline in an attempt to reboot some of their characters. Tony Stark was no exception, and he was reborn in a new universe where he was even more of a selfish jerk than usual. And when he was wounded in an attack, Tony took up a special suit of armor to become a hero. Referred to in the storyline as the Prometheum armor, this rather unique looking suit was exclusive to the Heroes Reborn universe and honestly wasn't too well received. While most of Iron Man's armors tend to be clean and simplified in appearance, the Heroes Reborn armor took a different approach, with steel cords, lots of tubing, and 2 just massive exhaust pipes on the back that allow the armor to release heat. Though just a prototype, Tony was required to wear this armor's chest plate at all times in order to keep his heart beating and his lungs functioning properly. The suit didn't have an arc reactor and had to constantly be recharged in order to keep pumping. Overall, this armor was overly bulky and not visually appealing in the slightest. Instead of the more streamlined direction the armors had been going in, this one takes a step backwards, adding in musculature and separate plates that made it just way too complicated. Check it out for yourself in 1996's Iron Man Volume 2, number 1. Number 7. Mark 52 Hulkbuster Car. Now, if you're not familiar with this armor, don't worry, I also didn't know it existed until today. The Mark 52 is actually just the Mark 44 Hulkbuster seen in the MCU, but unlike the MCU's take on the comics Hulkbuster, this suit was also a car for some reason. Yep, that's right, what looks just like a simple flying car is actually a fully functioning Iron Man armor that could be deployed from the push of a button. Now, in its vehicle form, the armor can achieve flight with the use of 2 repulsor turbines on its bottom, and then by pressing the button on the car's panel, the entire thing transformed into a Hulkbuster armor in a matter of seconds. It's basically just a transformer. This marked the first time a suit of armor in the Marvel Universe continuity was adapted from the MCU. While certain artist depiction of the Iron Man armor Mark 42 included a helmet design lifted from the standard Iron Man helmet outline used in the MCU, the Mark 52 is the first armor with a design taken straight and entirely from the films. Now, why Tony decided he needed another Hulkbuster at this point in time is beyond me, because he certainly was not fighting any big bad guys. But also why he thought it needed to be a flying car as well just makes absolutely no sense. Like, he really wasn't struggling for any money because he had just sold Stark Tower at the time, and I don't know, maybe he just wanted to see if it was possible. Either way, check it out for yourself in 2016's all new, all different Avengers number 1. Number 6. Ablative Armor. This is another one of Tony's armors that wasn't supposed to be dumb, silly, or weird, it just kind of turned out that way. The Ablative Armor was a prototype space armor designed for an impact-heavy environment. It's made up of tiled pieces that could be manipulated by a force field to dynamically protect him from projectile attacks, while also being used as ranged weapons as well. Basically, picture those bicycle helmets that were specifically designed to break on impact, as a way to absorb the shock of the crash and thus protect the bicyclist's head. That's the sort of design Tony was going for with this armor, made entirely of little tiles that are designed in such a way to, you guessed it, break on impact. Once a tile is broken, it pops off and another one slides into its place, and new tiles are constantly being generated. And they're even capable of separating from the armor and, kind of just doing their own thing. There's no doubt that it's a unique concept and might be one that Tony would come back to later on, but it's a little bit clunky and overall just a little nightmarish to look at. Take a look for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 2003's Iron Man Volume 3, number 71.
At number 5, we have Hawkeyes Tunic in Avengers number 72. Good lord, dude! Pants! Not only is Hawkeye one of the bravest Avengers on account of him being super powerless, but to stand shoulder to shoulder with Earth's mightiest heroes in what's effectively a dress is a whole new level of courage. Not to mention that this was right after some very questionable decisions led to Hank Pym turning Hawkeye into the size-changing Goliath. Not to mention that this was right after some very questionable decisions that led to Hank Pym turning Hawkeye into the size-changing Goliath, who sports an equally decisive costume, that one including those redundant bolted shoulder and waist straps. Sorry to say, buddy, but this fit just makes you look arrogant. Arrogant? No? Okay, I tried. At number 4, we have Captain America's exoskeleton, debuting in Captain America number 438. On yet another edition of Why Does This Hero Need a Whole Suit of Armor, we have Captain America. And while his excuse is a little better than Superman's, it's still pretty lame. You see, Steve Rogers became completely paralyzed by an illness brought on by the very super soldier serum that granted him his superpowers in the first place. And so in order to allow Cap to continue his crime fighting career, Tony Stark fashioned him this exoskeleton. And after getting some implants that would enable him to operate it, Cap was back in action. Now, I've included this one on the list because the whole concept is a bit ridiculous. I mean, super soldier serum induced paralysis just makes the serum itself completely redundant. Like, if you wanted to give Cap an Iron Man suit, just give Cap an Iron Man suit and do away with the whole degenerative disease nonsense. I mean, Spidey got an Iron Man suit, more than one, and he didn't need to get paralyzed to earn it. At number 3, we have Plaid Daredevil. Okay, this next one is seriously cruel, and if you laugh, your soul is going straight to Mephisto. This panel comes from What If Volume 2 number 17, the comic that asks, what if Daredevil had a dishonest tailor? To which Kingpin and Punisher are seen laughing in his face. See, I think this is dumb, not because of the plaid, although it is pretty ugly, but because it's uncharacteristic. You see, Daredevil wouldn't have gotten ripped off. He can't. He can literally smell fear and dishonesty. It's what makes him such a good lawyer. So either this universe's Daredevil is missing one of his most crucial hyper senses, or he's Canadian. Either way, it's nothing to laugh about. At number 2, we have Hulk, the Horseman of War from Incredible Hulk number 456. That's right, not only has Hulk been a villain, an Avenger, a space gladiator, and the conqueror of entire planets, but now we can add first non-mutant war horseman of the apocalypse to his resume as well. His armor, made from celestial tech, allows him to accomplish feats of strength with ease, which the irregular Hulk would probably find at least a little strenuous, like picking up and tossing an entire Egyptian pyramid, for instance. His helmet also has the added bonus of calming his inner demons, allowing the Hulk to become more cold and calculated. And if I'm being honest with you guys, the real reason I included this costume on the list is because it makes Hulk look like a jacked version of Marvin the Martian. Am I the only one who's made this connection? Can't be. And at number 1, we have Mangaverse's Black Panther, who made his very first in-costume appearance in Marvel Mangaverse Eternity Twilight. The Marvel Mangaverse has plenty of questionable redesigns. I'm looking at you, Spider Gloves. But when it comes to the King of Wakanda, boy oh boy did they do him dirty. See, instead of utilizing the vibranium of his homeland to build himself a super suit, T'Challa of Earth 2301 seems to have replaced his sacred herb powers with the spirit of Kwamatha, transforming him into a furry. As if things weren't furry enough with Tigra around, who, after watching T'Challa transform, immediately gets the heart-shaped eyes for him, anime style. Okay, look, maybe I wouldn't have so much hate for the suit if there was a suit to begin with, as the king's suggestively shaped loincloth leaves very little to the imagination, and the bat ears. Ugh, why is he the only anthropomorph with hyper-realistic ears? Now, if you made it this far without gouging your own eyeballs out, then give this video some love. And hey, if there's a dumb costume you know of that I left out here, feel free to let me know down in the comments and I'll be sure to include your suggestion in the next iteration of this list.
Number 10, Wolverines Patch Disguise. Wolverines Patch Disguise. Okay, bub. So you know I'm a big Wolverine fan, and if you follow me elsewhere on the interwebs, you may also know I'm a big Patch fan. However, even I, a major fan, can acknowledge how ridiculous this look and disguise is. While the Gambit miniseries we got recently did help to justify Gambit's kind of weird costume choices, the Patch miniseries definitely did not do that. Although that miniseries, written by Wolverine writing legend Larry Hama, which takes us back in time for an untold tale from the Patch era, is still amazing, and you should definitely check it out. The funny thing is how even in the comics, the other characters who interact with Patch and Madripoor eventually fess up to the fact that they pretty much always knew Patch was Wolverine, admitting that his attempt at a disguise is as ridiculous and dumb as we all thought it was. Still, I do love the Patch look, so this is more me pointing out how silly it is, as opposed to dumb in like a bad way. This is actually a lovably dumb superhero suit, I would say. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button. Number 9, Superman Red and Blue. Admittedly, these designs are actually kind of really cool, but it's more the power sets that come with them and how they attempted to, in essence, reset Superman with these looks that makes them kind of dumb. Although I do admire DC for wanting to change up the design and the character, which honestly was a revolutionary choice. The fact remains that this is comics, and returning to a status quo, especially for a character as old and as respected as Supes, is kinda necessary, which is why this didn't really work and a lot of people didn't really like it. Number 8, Swordsman. I don't know about you, but I personally find Jacques Duquesne's look a little silly. Like, what is happening with that helmet? Is that a helmet? It's not, right? Because it's like attached to his whole outfit, which is also really weird. What's happening there? Also, I don't mind the tunic and the tights, but the weird pink and purple color combination here is interesting for color choices. At least that's how I see the colors. I don't know if you guys see pink and purple, but that's what I'm seeing here. And the fact that while he has gloves on to protect his hands, he has nothing to cover his arms, except for, I guess, those armbands. What are the armbands for? Are they supposed to protect him, or are they like just for adornment? The thing I love about the modern look for the Cutout version of this character by comparison to the original human swordsman who first appeared in Marvel Comics back in the 60s is that at least this plant version, while still not having full sleeves, had the improved design of wearing bracers. Honestly, I think that makes more sense for a master swordsman rather than gloves and armbands. And also, just for context, I was talking about the original swordsman design there, so. Number 7, Azrael's Batman. As per Saya Dubray's suggestion from the comments on part 1 of this list, I had to include Jean-Paul Valley's Batman outfit here. You're completely right, Saya. It is one of the most 90s outfits around. And while I am a big fan of dumb 90s outfits, that doesn't make them any less dumb. It just means that I love things that are dumb, which is I think fine. And this outfit is definitely included in the list of dumb 90s outfits for sure. From the weird cape collar to the metal accents and back again to the insane amount of muscle definition that we can see through what must be the tightest fitting outfit ever. Also, metal garters. I mean, having a metal garter on your leg, I imagine that has to be uncomfortable. Number 6, Wolverine's no nose. Wolverine's nose is not really a suit at all, but it is a whole look that Wolverine had for a time that was bizarre. And I thought, hey, if Tony's iron nose can make the cut on AJ's part 1, it's important that I also include Wolverine's nose on part 2 here. While Iron Man having a nose added to his suit was weird for the character, Wolverine had the opposite problem of completely losing his nose, which was also weird for the character. However, at least this was more of a stylistic choice inspired by the story than, an arbitrary change to the design based on where Iron Man's eyes are. So I will at least say that in the defense of this pretty strange look for the character. It came as a result of Wolverine having the adamantium coating ripped from his bones by Magneto, which also turned him feral. For a few years he'd become more bestial in nature than he normally was, which apparently also meant his nose, I guess, had to go, becoming more of a flat central spot on his face with 2 nostrils. Kinda like became pushed into his face. Almost. I mean, honestly, this version of Wolverine almost becomes unrecognizable when you take the nose off.
Number 5, The Thing. Fantastic Four. 2015, very important number. The Fantastic Four movies are on here more than once and for good reason. Okay, so we head over now to the reboot that didn't do well at all. It was directed by Josh Trank, released in 2015, and is currently sitting at a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. Also, the other Fantastic Four movies before this reboot didn't get the best of reviews. I mean, sure, they were made long before the MCU was established, so there's not much to compare, but they were fun at the time. I mean, I remember having a good time in theaters. I don't remember having a bad time in theaters like I did with this Fantastic Four movie. But with John Watts attached to take a swing at the franchise yet again, we have a little bit of hope. He brought Spider-Man back to life and did such a good job. So as soon as he announced that he was doing Fantastic Four, I think we're good. I think we're finally past the uglies and now we're gonna get into the goods. But let's look now at one of the many things that made this movie bomb. And for me, it was character design. It didn't work. It didn't pull me in at all. I didn't care about any of these characters. I didn't care about the Fantastic Four. That's insane. Like The Thing, he's a super rock monster with a literal heart of gold. His first appearance is fun. He's a fun major character. Keyword here is fun. In 2011, The Thing ranked 18th in the top 100 comic book heroes, and we still haven't really seen any movie do him justice properly. For starters, at least the version that Michael Chiklis played had an actual actor under the suit. We had an actual human to relate to in some way or another. Number 4, Dr. Doom, Fantastic Four 2015. And now we got number 4, same movie. Let's do it. While we're at it, I gotta bring up Dr. Doom from the same movie. Perhaps even worse than how bad The Thing looked, we have our main villain. Also, one of the biggest Marvel villains ever of all time. Victor Von Von Doom was played by Toby Kebbell, who I'm a big fan of. His motion capture work for the Planet of the Apes movies were amazing. He's a fantastic actor. So dare I say, I was looking forward to seeing this movie in theaters. In the early 2000s franchise, we almost got him. We almost got Dr. Doom. We kind of got a comic book look and feel. A little bit. But even so, this was a watered down version of the character as a whole. Like, he's not a king yet. And the reboot back in 2015, when the first look of Dr. Doom was leaked, we couldn't even believe it. We thought it was fake. We were confused and kind of worried, but then, you know, maybe a little CGI will kind of clean him up a bit, maybe some post-production. Maybe we'll have a good Dr. Doom, right? Right? We'll get him next time, boys. Number 3, Venom, Spider-Man 3. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies have a special place in my soul, in my heart. They're a big part of my childhood. I remember seeing Spider-Man 2 in theaters, and I remember having the best time. It rocked my world. And then the third one came out. So we got to see Venom come to life in the form of Topher Grace. This movie also just had a villain problem to begin with, not necessarily just Venom. We got a new Goblin, Harry Osborn, Flint Marko as the Sandman, and Eddie Brock as Venom. On paper, this sounds like a great Spider-Man sequel. Sounds like a lot of fun, but it wasn't. Why is that? Well, part of the problem was that the studio was pushing director Sam Raimi to include Venom in the plot, when even he didn't want to. He wanted to complete Harry's arc, boom, which he did, and he wanted to have a new wild villain that makes a blockbuster pop like Sandman, and then he originally wanted to have the Vulture in there as well as a third villain. He said Venom's lack of humanity wouldn't work with the existing story and universe. Yeah, absolutely. Venom looks bad in this movie. He just looks like Topher Grace in a suit with messed up teeth. It doesn't feel remotely close to being a powerful symbiote, and also because Raimi had to throw Venom in the plot, we also had to see a new look for Spider-Man, which was the black suit, which was cool. The black suit's a nice little nod to the old comics. It's cool, it makes him stronger. He likes the suit, it feels good on him. Awesome, we love to see it. But that meant we also got to see a new Peter Parker as well, which we didn't want to see. So including Venom was a fail for a good amount of reasons in this movie, not just the look.
I like being bad. It makes me happy.
Number 2, Galactus. Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. Okay, everybody heads up. We have a giant menacing space cloud coming in, and it's gonna kill all of us, so hit the deck. Galactus made his first comic book appearance in Fantastic Four issue 48 back in the 60s. He's referred to in this issue as the ultimate danger, and his looks match the description. He's the sole survivor of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse, and he was also the bad guy slash bad cloud slash thing that was coming in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. We're used to seeing this guy as a giant powerful cosmic being, but his big reveal in this movie was not there at all. All we got was a little sneak peek at his silhouette. But why did this happen? Why did they choose to do a giant Nimbus cloud instead of a villain? Let me explain. So 20th Century Fox, their rationale for having the character as a cloud was apparently to keep him discreet, because they had original plans for him, and that was in a Silver Surfer spin-off. So they wanted that to be a tease, and then furthermore explore his true look and story in the movie. So they wanted to kind of tease him first and then bring him in to the actual Silver Surfer spin-off, which would have been great, but we never got that. And finally, number 1, Deadpool. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Okay, possibly the worst cinematic debut of Wade Wilson. And we got 2 looks in that movie that nobody wanted. 2 for the price of 1. We got this one. And we also got this one.
Wait, is that you? Stryker finally figured out how to shut you up.
Both were not received well. Now we're finally back on track with Wade Wilson. Just like Logan, we got that R-rated comic book character we should have always gotten. The merc with the mouth, and your plan was to sew his mouth shut. Okay, great plan. So he went from holding katanas wearing a red and black outfit to having blades in his arm while being naked. And what didn't help was the fight scene that followed this horrible reintroduction. Thank God they're trying again with these characters, but I mean, how many tickets do we have to buy to see your failed attempts? Now, I bet it's not easy trying to make some of these characters come to life, but what about you guys? Who are some of the other Marvel characters that just didn't get the look that they deserved? I mean, of course, there's quite a bit. I only picked 10 of my personal favorites, so let's hear some of yours, then I can read them and then laugh along with you and eat chips and you know, live it up.
Number 10, Jack of Hearts. Jack of Hearts, whose name is actually Jonathan Hart, so a John instead of a Jack in his everyday life, is an underrated hero really, though he could do with a wardrobe update. His name makes him sound like he belongs in a Las Vegas casino, while his powers have nothing to do with card tricks. He got his powers from a fuel created by his father called Zero Fluid. He was covered in it as a result of a scuffle between him and an evil corporation who wanted to steal his father's scientific discovery. This resulted in him being granted powers including zero energy blast, superhuman strength, durability, and flight. But regardless of how cool he is alone, his costume makes him look like he would fit in more in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland than the pages of a comic book. He looks like one of the Queen of Hearts goons. With his half-painted face and his card-inspired tunic, his outfit from the 70s is in need of an update. I would love to see his outfit reflect just how cool of a hero he is. Number 9, Black Bolt and Lockjaw. The presence of Black Bolt, Inhuman Leader, and King and his dog Lockjaw might shock you for appearing on this list. Why did I add him here? Okay, let's just do a pan up from the bottom of his costume. So everything is good so far. Yep, standard spandex outfit here, cool pattern on the suit, and then wait for it, there. What is that on his mask? That is a tuning fork. It is true that Black Bolt sometimes uses his tuning fork in the comics to emit energy or channel his powers, but he also seems to use his powers just fine without the fork. It isn't a part of his body after all, it's just a part of his costume. Also, Lockjaw also has a tuning fork on his head, which to be fair looks as adorable as it does ridiculous. So you might think, but wait, what does Lockjaw use his tuning fork for? He doesn't have the electron harnessing speech center that Black Bolt possesses, right? You're right. Lockjaw is primarily known for his teleportation powers. The tuning fork for him can be used to channel and focus these powers. For someone who is using their speech, I could kinda see that this tuning fork might make sense, but for Lockjaw's powers, it also helps? Wait, WTF? Is this an Inhuman thing? Cause if so, why isn't everyone wearing a tuning fork on their head? Where's Medusa's tuning fork? Number 8, Captain Ultra. Captain Ultra doesn't just suffer from sometimes being an annoying character who admittedly even other supers would like some distance from, he also suffers from a case of a bad costume. Poor guy. His costume is problematic for the reason that it just has like too much going on. We are first introduced to Captain Ultra in the Fantastic Four Volume 1 issue 177. Another honorable mention from that issue is wannabe supervillain character Osprey, who wears wings despite not having any flight powers. Or any powers at all, sadly. Back to Captain Ultra. From his debut to his short time in the Defender series, his costume in the 60s and 70s always had just too much going on. Green helmet, blue cape, orange pants, red and yellow vest, blue underwear over the top of it all. All the iconic 70s colors rolled into one heinous outfit. Ugh. Number 7, Invisible Woman. After choosing to merge with Malice's persona to prevent Malice from taking control over her own body, Sue Storm underwent a radical change in the comics. While I kind of enjoyed the verve, sassiness, and occasional short temper she exhibited, including a scene in the comics where she turns residents of the tower's clothes invisible, using her powers in an attempt to cause them to stop chastising her and criticizing her younger brother Johnny Storm, which was pretty comical. A change that also came about from her transformation was one that was pretty ridiculous. Her ditching her old uniform and creating a new one with a cutout 4 in its chest to show off cleavage, and a ridiculous tummy window. This leotard is certainly an outfit, but one that seems a little risky. I mean, I know she's the Invisible Woman, but even when invisible, exposing your stomach to an enemy just seems like a bad call. Number 6, Hercules. Obviously Hercules is from an ancient era, and as a result, his looks can be considered dated to some, or I really think of them more as classic looks, and I find them more timeless myself. Except for during the Crossing event. Get ready to open up the Pandora's box that is time in Marvel comic history, cause there are a lot of awful outfits that came out of here. This Hercules costume involved a tank top with the Avengers A on it, some brown pants, and a belt. With his tank top tucked in and belted, I mean, Just imagine that look in the real world, like outside of the comics, and it's utterly ridiculous. Not to mention, they had Hercules shave for this outfit. This modern take on Hercules in the world of the 90s was just a travesty to his character, who is known for his iconic gladiator-inspired looks. I also have to give an honorable mention to the time Hercules' costume was just his birthday suit. Yep, it was super short-lived, and to call it a costume per se might be a stretch, but he was sort of training others using a Greek-inspired athletics competition while he was wearing it, or wearing nothing. Even offering to wrestle other heroes while in the buff. Ugh. Number 5. Mangaverse Black Cat. Mangaverse Black Cat has a pretty wild look. To be fair to the universe, this one fits, I would say, in regards to, a manga look, but boy oh boy is it strange when you think of Black Cat's standard look over on Earth 616. I mean, Black Cat has always been a sexy character, as many are in comics, but she doesn't usually have quite a deep v-neck. I'm not sure how exactly this suit also really functions. It must be made of some very firm material or like glued into place for it to stay on. Also missing are the tufts of white fur we're used to seeing Felicia wear, which I actually do miss. I really like those. I still feel like those could have been incorporated in some way in this look, but I guess they wanted to move away from having this version of the character look too similar to her, 616 counterpart, which honestly, fair enough, but still the deep V and the super long claws for me feel pretty weird. Maybe it's just because I'm not as into manga as I used to be, I don't know, but that's where we're at. Number 4. Doctor Strange, a new Sorcerer Supreme. The 90s was a time when many folks got new looks. Some of them were, actually almost all of them were pretty terrible. But that's why we love them, right? Steven was not exempt from this. He got one of the most mystical 90s looks after years of having what I would say was a relatively unchanged costume. It didn't change that much, and even today it's kind of got a similar vibe. His costume was tweaked here and there, but usually for the most part it's just been slightly updated. But this was a pretty crazy refresh for him. His hair was even different. This transformation took place in issue number 75 of Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, where Steven revealed himself at the end as the true Doctor Strange. The sunglasses are what really get me with this one, though honestly, kind of want to cosplay as 90s Strange now. I mean, what a vibe. Also, I love that he comes out and he's like, the sun, I must put on sunglasses. To make sense of why he's wearing sunglasses. Which, I mean, you gotta make sense of that, otherwise how am I supposed to accept as a reader? Number 3. Starfire from Red Hood and the Outlaws. Based on how the comments looked for part 2, I can already feel the animosity surrounding this point just building up. Just for me even mentioning it. I could end the point here and I feel like people would rage. But regardless, I'm gonna dive into my perspective of this one anyways, because, well, I mean, that's what I'm here to do, so that's what we're gonna do. Talking about costumes that I think are somewhat dumb, and so we're gonna get into that. As I've said before though, and I will say again, dumb to me doesn't always mean bad. It can mean illogical, silly, or contradictory. It doesn't necessarily mean bad. I love a lot of bad costumes myself, so they're not bad, they're just, I don't know, on paper good. Does that make sense? Well, I don't actually mind the design. I do think this look for Starfire was a bit much. I do think Starfire makes sense wearing less based on her energy absorption abilities. However, that being said, her first costume was basically just like a one-piece swimsuit with some cutouts. This is like not even a bikini level of coverage. It's like a bikini bottoms with cutouts with like a collar shoulder thing and pasties. And I mean, it's definitely an homage to that original look, but they undressed it even more for like really no reason. Add in the fact that Starfire was also an amnesiac at the beginning of this run, and I feel like we could have done better by Corey here. It would actually be less ridiculous to me if Corey was the one to have chosen this with all her memories attached. Then it would actually have some agency. This was kind of just a weird time in general for her character. Also, because it bears repeating, apparently, I am not critiquing the outfit because it is sexy. It's more the issue of how extreme it is and what was going on for Starfire in the story when she wore this look. I like sexy costumes. I like characters who wear sexy costumes. That's all fine with me. Number 2. Superman's t-shirt and jeans look. I mean, what even is this look? I understand wanting to modernize your character's appearance and give them something totally different, but a t-shirt and jeans just seems a little too low-key. And I know it had a narrative explanation exaggeration, but still, it's pretty ridiculous. This is the outfit Superman wore when he drove around the US on a motorbike. He couldn't fly at the time, and what a time it was. I will say though, this one would be really easy to cosplay at least, so it gets some points for that, because I mean anyone could do this look. I could do this look. I could be this Superman. Number 1. Red Sonja's chainmail bikini. Now of course I have cosplayed as Red Sonja, but even I can admit that her outfit is pretty ridiculous. And I say this with much love for this outfit. The whole point of wearing chainmail is to protect you, so wearing it in a bikini form, it doesn't really make any sense. The only thing I can say about this that kind of makes sense is Red Sonja really doesn't care what other people think of her, so I could see her wearing a chainmail bikini because you just didn't care, but it's not good armor, you know what I mean? And sure, it's an iconic look that I will happily wear any day of the week, well as long as I'm feeling like wearing a chainmail bikini, but that doesn't change how goofy it is, as is evident by many of those who write and draw her, changing up what she wears inside the comics while kind of saving that iconic look more for either a single moment in a story or just for the cover. So I feel like even creative teams acknowledge this.